What's up, everybody, and welcome to No Risk Strategy, the show that's guaranteed to help you get good at Risk. I am Logan, aka lasergamerguy, and today we are looking at one of the craziest fucking fixed games I have ever played. Guys, you are gonna like this one, I promise, and I believe it is a masterclass in how to beat overly aggressive noobs. I'm excited to show you all the crazy shit that I pulled in this game, like letting my opponents take Asia, letting them break my continents and not retaliating. I did a lot of really insane shit in this game, and I want to explain to you why I knew I was going to win the second all of that went down. So this was a really, really fun one. It takes a lot of work to put these videos together, so if you like this video, please do hit the like button, subscribe down below, I would really appreciate it, and let's get going. Starting off here with the red player, and guys, if you've ever seen my channel before, you know the memes. It is always red. It's always red pulling the shenanigans, and in this game, it was no different. Red was an absolute maniac, the likes of which I have really never seen before. And I have to say, we don't have a very good spawn in this game. We just had a 2 of ours knocked out of Australia by red. We've got another 3 trapped in South America. We've got a lot of material in Europe, which is very crowded. And we've got a lot of material in North America. That's our biggest stack. And North America is extremely crowded. So I think a lot of newer players might have botted in this situation, just seeing like we don't really have a clear continent that we can take early. But I could see the second I saw red doing this shit, right? Like way over attacking. I was like, okay, let's just be patient. Let's bide our time. Let's wait for other people to bot out, and then we can make kills. And then we'll figure out which continent is the most open for us to take. So I really like that play of being patient, and you'll see that is the biggest takeaway of this game. When you are playing with noobs, you want to be very patient. Don't do anything crazy. Don't piss anyone off. Just bide your time and wait for them to get into wars, and that is exactly what happened here. So for the most part, I'm actually not going to be breaking down my opponent's moves in this game because, spoiler alert, they were all terrible. If you're curious why what red and orange is doing is really not a good play in Risk, I definitely would suggest watching some tutorials and covering the basics of the game. This video is really more for expert, master ranked players, people around there who want to consistently beat noobs when they're playing fixed and want to deal with folks who are slamming into them and breaking their bonuses. How do you handle that kind of thing? This video is really much more about that. I will say red makes a pretty big mistake in how they're guarding Australia. There was originally a purple 2 in Siam that they attacked. And so rather than sitting with purple guarding them in Australia and then a 6 stack in Indonesia, they end up sitting with a very juicy 3. And orange just can't resist slamming into them. You see this a ton. I'm sure you've all seen this when playing Risk. The noob slam in Australia happens every game. It's why I hate the Australia position, and most experts really don't like playing in Australia. But even with basically a free Australia, red played that wrong. Orange slams into them. Bad deal for both. So onto my turn here, and as I said, really the name of the game is patience right now. I know we're playing with some bad players. Literally only one of the 5 accepted my alliance request. That's a very telltale sign that we're playing with noobs, right? No one wants to communicate with me. And then the other sign that we're playing with noobs is everything that's been happening in Australia. So what I do is I figure out where we can get cards. I tried to get a card in South America and then very quickly sent a heart to yellow as if I had done that just to weaken myself and was like, oh yeah, attack my territory if you need to. Totally didn't just try and attack you there. So we're making good relations with our one ally. We're getting a card out of a stack in Asia that I'm pretty sure is going to go away. And then we're strengthening our other positions, being patient, waiting for someone to be weak and make kills. And specifically, we're going to start lining up on purple and orange here. So as I said, takeaway number 1 of this game is to be patient. But takeaway number 2 is to figure out as soon as you can how good are my opponents and how aggressive are my opponents. Here we can tell with 100% confidence that red is very aggressive and not very good, right? We see them massively over attacking. We see them splitting. We see them prioritizing Australia. Red is doing a lot of things that are telling us they're not very good. And so what that means for me is a couple things. 1, I'm going to get out of red's way wherever I can. I do not want to be in a war with red, right, at all costs because they're aggressive and they're going to slam. And then the number 2 thing is I'm not too worried about red getting strong, right? I don't think red is a serious threat to win this game. I am skeptical they even know how to win the game. And so I'm no longer worried about letting red get strong. It's not a priority for me. Now we're seeing the board start to stabilize just a little bit, at least as much as it can stabilize with this many noobs. So we see that yellow is going to take their South America. We see blue is going for Africa. We know that red has their Australia. Thank God for them. And we see purple as a bot now. And more than likely, we're also going to see orange bot out, right? Because orange lost that war for Australia. So we're expecting now to play with two bots. And the thing is, purple is going to bot because they don't have an obvious continent. A lot of players in my shoes would have done the same, right? Because I also don't have an obvious continent. But because I could see that we were playing with so many bots and noobs, I was just biding my time, like I said, and waiting to make those kills. So the next couple turns for me are really about lining up to make the purple and the orange kill with the expectation that orange is going to bot out like purple did, right? So now we're really just lining ourselves up. And importantly, we're also making sure that our stacks are too strong for the bot to hit, right? Wherever we're next to the bot in purple and eventually in orange, we're going to make our stacks bigger than all of the neighboring stacks so that the bot hits our opponents instead. Fast forwarding ahead to the end of Orange's turn, and you can see they very predictably bot out here. I even opened the panel just to show you how predictable it was. You can really anticipate a lot of this game if you've played enough, right, and you're really paying attention to your opponents. As soon as Orange lost that Australia war, it was just a matter of time before they bought it out. On to my turn, and even when you're just hitting a 1, it's important to be strategic, right, and think about who you want to hit and why. Here I choose to hit yellow, who I think is probably my best opponent in the game at this point, right? They're my only ally, they're holding a continent, they've played generally reasonably so far. So I decide to knock out yellow, even though they're my ally, just so that they're in a worse position potentially to make some kills later, right? I'm just knocking them out of North America for now. I'm also sitting in the middle of North America. If you guys have seen my videos before, you know this is my favorite territory on the map in Ontario because it attacks in every single direction in North America, right? We can attack in 6 different ways, and yet it's also out of the way. You can go around our territory there. Skipping ahead to our next turn, and you can see my focus is still making sure that we're really, really strong to the purple bot, right? The purple bot just hit a number of our opponents out of Europe, and so we want to make sure that it prioritizes hitting the yellow 5 instead of either of our stacks there, which, spoiler alert, is exactly what ends up happening. So we're making sure that we're really strong to the bot, that we're in position to hit the bot, and I'm not panicking at all about the fact that I don't have a continent yet. You can see that we're about as strong as everyone else, even yellow and red, who have held continents basically the whole game. Okay, on to our 4th turn, and you can see here that both red and blue traded in their cards, and they both had a lucky 10 set. So both of them are pretty strong now. Blue hit orange fully out of Africa, so blue has taken their Africa, and we still don't have any kind of line to a continent. So our situation is looking a lot worse objectively, but I'm still very confident about how this game is going, I have to say. We're just waiting for the right time to strike. We're not overextending ourselves. We're not trying to take a continent that we're not going to be able to hold because of these bots. We're just waiting in position. I did make a little bit of a mistake here in adding 1 troop into Scandinavia. There was no reason to have added that troop there. I think I was probably worried about the bot hitting me, but what I should have done is added all of my troops to North America, and you can see that will come into play later in the game. The fact that we don't have quite enough troops in North America to make sure that we get kills, right? So that was a little bit of a mistake, just 1 troop of a mistake that could have made a very big difference in the game. And it's important, even when you have a good game, to look back and say, could I have played it even a little bit better? Did I do anything that wasn't quite optimal? And I think this is a case where I definitely made a little bit of a mistake in not fully adding my entire reinforcement to North America. You can see red here is pretty clearly going for Asia. They're doing a lot of weird splitting, right? And they're hitting purple for kind of no reason. So at this point, I'm pretty convinced they're going for Asia, and I'm 100,000% convinced that they are terrible. So we're still not worried about red, but we definitely want to get out of their way, like I said. Purple is going to set in here. I was actually considering killing purple if they didn't have a set, especially because red had helped me out. But no, purple sets, and they hit that yellow 5 just like we wanted. So being strong to the bot has really helped us out here. I'm actually going to fast forward once again to my turn because we are in a pretty vulnerable position here. we got very unlucky and don't have a set on 4 cards. And so if I don't go ahead and kill orange here, we would be sitting on 5 cards and be pretty juicy, right, to the other players to kill. Yellow has made a big mistake in not opening their stack to us. You can see here their 14 is locked. But I do think it was important that we went ahead and got this orange kill right now. That way we get a ton of cards, right? So you can see it was 72% odds on that last attack, not 100%. But by virtue of making it, we get to double trade in here, which is really, really huge. And we've got all these +2 bonuses. So we get a ton of troops, a ton of troops. And all of a sudden, despite not having held a continent the whole game, and still not having a very clear line for a bonus, right? Still nothing that's really obvious for us to take. Even despite that, we are currently in the lead, I would say, just in terms of our overall strength and positioning. And so that was a really, really big kill for us. And once again, I should have added a few more troops to North America to make sure that we had it. So this is another key decision point. It seems like our most logical continent is North America, given how much of it we control and the fact that the bot is strong in Europe. But just thinking about how this game was going to play out, I felt like Europe was a better continent to hold. Don't get me wrong, I much prefer North America to Europe in general. It's very difficult to hold Europe. It's one of my least favorite continents. But I just felt like trying to get blue to vacate North America when I knew blue was not very good, that was a difficult proposition, right? That was a very difficult proposition. And also yellow didn't have any stack in Asia. So yellow is basically going to be forced to take cards off of either blue or whomever is in North America. So long term, I just felt like the Europe play was a lot better. And putting our troops in Europe positions us really well to get the purple kill, which would basically just directly feed into us holding Europe. So overall, I really like the idea of sitting in Europe and getting in position to kill the bot. And you can see me here taking advantage of my alliance. I tell yellow that I need to attack their territory and that they should attack purple, right? So now they can clearly tell that I'm going for Europe and they're not going to be upset when I hit their 4. So that is a situation when alliances are very important. On to my turn again. You can see that yellow did comply with my request and hit purple in Europe. And there's definitely an argument for waiting here until purple gets another card, but I decide to go ahead and make this purple kill right now and take Europe. My thinking is that 1, the bot could trade in on 3 cards, and 2, I want to hold Europe as soon as I possibly can. I'm strong enough to take Europe right now, and so I just felt like it made a lot of sense to take it, right? Take that big advantage of holding the +5 and take purple's cards and make sure that we get the kill. Sometimes you got to be aggressive. You can't over optimize for someone having 4 cards rather than 3. I just felt like it was the right time to take it there, and I was pretty confident I would be able to at least hold it, if not on this turn, then on the next turn. And I would say that this moment really represents the halfway point of the game. Before and after I held Europe, my strategy is going to now completely change, and I'm going to move toward a strategy that involves 2 things: patience, like we already talked about, and trust. Basically, what I'm going to do is leave relatively weak borders in a lot of cases, including right here, right? I was kind of anticipating that red might do something dumb and break me in Europe, which they do. That's fine, right? We knew they were going to do that, and so we didn't leave a lot of troops there. So we're going to be patient, but we're also going to consolidate our troops so that when folks break us, we're not losing 10, 15 stacks, right? And you'll often see this in fixed when people decide to turn on each other and they lose their patience. The player that they turn on is going to lose a really big stack that they were guarding with. And in general, I really do my best to avoid losing stacks. And you can really see that strategy coming into play here. I'm going to split and leave enough troops where I know red is not going to be strong enough to break me, but I'm going to go full trust to blue. You can see here I'm guarding with a 1. So really the key to the strategy is figuring out who to trust. And in this case, the Africa player has a lot to lose by getting into a fight with me. To be honest, if I was blue, there's a pretty strong argument for breaking me in Europe here, right? And not letting me catch up. So I can definitely see some merit for blue breaking me. But, I mean, obviously there's the downside that if they break me, there's a chance I just full suicide into them. And that's where really understanding and reading your opponents comes into play. I think in this particular case, if blue had been paying attention, they would know that 1, I was a good player, And 2, I was a very patient player, right? I didn't overextend at all for continents, and I waited to make kills. So there's a good chance that if blue actually did break me in Europe, I wouldn't retaliate and full suicide into them. So something to consider. You can see here, red is going to go ahead and take their Asia finally, which is absolutely insane. Never take Asia, guys. Shouldn't have to say that. So now I'm telling blue to attack red. And what blue should do here, if they're not going to break me, is attack the Middle East, right? If blue stacks on the Middle East and I stack in Ukraine, all of a sudden there's nothing that red can do, right? Red long term is going to be card blocked and just totally screwed. But blue is not really a good enough player to figure that out. So they're still going to do a kind of traditional guard. And they're risking getting into a Cold War kind of situation here with yellow, right? You never really want to have your big stack next to your opponent's big stack because you're just tempting them to hit you, right? It's just too tempting where eventually if they're mad, it's way too easy for them to slam into you. And you'll see that coming into play later. Back to me here, and you can see me doing something that I said I wouldn't do in messing with red. I am going to break them in Asia because there's really nothing red can do about this based on the way their troops are positioned. And I wanted to show some good faith to my other allies that, hey, I was willing to play ball. I'm able to break red here. Red broke me in Europe, don't forget. So I am going to hit them and break their Asia. Unfortunately, though, blue is not going to take the hint. So you'll see red is going to retake their Asia. I'm going to ask blue once again to hit red and form that guarding structure that we talked about in the Middle East, and blue is not going to play ball. So you'll see what I do on this next turn is really the move that shakes up the whole game. Back around to me, and this is the big turn. Blue didn't play ball. They're expecting me to do their dirty work and break red in Asia, and guess what? I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let red hold Asia and Australia. This is normally a pretty insane turn, right? We're giving red 13 troops because they're holding a lot of territory too. But I'm just making a calculated risk that I'm basically better at playing with red than blue or yellow is going to be, but particularly blue. So I'm actually going to go ahead and give red a fist bump here, basically just completely turning on my other allies like, hey, let's be buddies, red, even though you broke me before. And now I'm really not going to mess with red the rest of the game. My thinking is that red is basically a bot, right? They're essentially acting like a bot. They're making a lot of really random attacks. If you have a big stack near them, they're going to hit it. If you're holding a continent and they can break it, they're going to break it. They're not playing strategically at all. And you'll see it gets to a pretty comical point later in the game. But I've just decided that, look, if you're not going to play ball with me, blue, I'm not going to play ball with you either. And I'm going to let red, this agent of pure chaos, get really strong on both of our borders. And let's see who can handle the madness better. And I'm banking on the fact that it's me. Back to our boy blue, and he is now panicking, right? I did not do my part and break red, so now they're holding Asia. And this is the moment when I knew I was going to win. My confidence went from about 80-85% to 100% because, boom, we see it, a big hit from blue into red. Not 100% roll, which is really interesting too, right? Blue did not play that well, but blue is going to smash into red, break them, and make another attack. That's the thing, guys. If you don't have to attack more than once, don't. There's very rarely an advantage in doing multiple attacks like that. You're just going to piss red off even more. So now we've started what I thought was kind of an inevitable war between blue and red by virtue of letting red hold Asia there. We've started the noob war. And fortunately for us, both of them are going to lose. No one wins the noob war. The only person who wins is the passive observer. And in this case, that's me, right? I have very little incentive now to shake the game up even more. My big move was actually not attacking red. But you'll see I'm not going aggressively after yellow, after blue, after red. I'm very content to just chill in Europe and watch these guys hit each other. And I'm very, very, very confident now that they're going to do exactly that. So you'll see me getting a very easy card here, retreating back, and I'm actually going to fast forward through a lot of the game now because I just feel like the rest of it was kind of inevitable the way that this played out. So skipping ahead 10 minutes of game time, and we get the fucking dudes trade, of course. We had terrible cards this whole game. But it is wild just how much of an advantage we've accrued in those 10 minutes. I gained 46 troops. Yellow gained 23, so half as many as me. And then you can see that blue and red essentially stayed the same. Blue actually lost troops. So, very clear evidence of why it's so bad to get into a war with someone, right? In case you didn't figure that out already. Me starting this war between blue and red is going to cause both of them to die. And it's been an absolute disaster for yellow too, because yellow's just kind of sat back and played patiently while I've gotten really strong and held Europe. No one has messed with the status quo of this game, and the status quo is just incredible for me. So I'm happy to let this play out just the way it is right now until either blue or red kills the other one. Back to blue, and this is just a truly inexplicable move. They're going to hit a 9 of red, and then they're going to fortify entirely outside of their bonus. Imagine if they had just stacked in the Middle East, man. They could have just stacked in the Middle East, and we would have formed an absolutely impenetrable wall against red. But for some bizarre reason, they decide they want to invest all of their troops in Afghanistan. I mean, to be fair, I guess all of the world's superpowers, the Soviets, the US, has made the same mistake over the last few decades of moving all of their troops to Afghanistan in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, this is obviously going to trigger red to break them in Africa. They give up the entire advantage that they've built up this whole game, right? All they had to do was just sit in the Middle East and they would have been unbreakable. But instead, they move out, and red is very, very predictably going to break them. Back to me now, and I'm going to reveal one of my ultra top secret strategy tips here, and it is called shenanigans time. We have officially entered into the shenanigans phase of the game. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to trade in my cards, right? I don't want to be sitting on any cards right now. I want to be as strong as I can with as little incentive to hit me as possible. I'm going to take an easy card, and then I'm going to consolidate my troops so that if blue decides to do something crazy and slam into me for no reason, just because they're salty that I've been holding Europe this whole game, which, spoiler alert, they were salty about that, basically they're not going to be able to hit my big stack now. In retrospect, I actually wish that I had consolidated all of my troops rather than guarding even a little bit. And as we expected, red is going to break blue here. No surprise at all that they're going to break blue in Africa after this very long war. But fortunately, we are protected from the shenanigans, right? Because we've consolidated our troops. And very unsurprisingly, I would say red is also going to break me in Europe, right? Because they're not playing strategically at all. They're just going to make an enemy of everyone, which is such a losing strategy and risk. Here's the thing, red players, because all of you red players are hyper aggressive in my experience. Risk is not a war game. Risk is a diplomacy game, and randomly attacking everyone is a failing strategy. But that's a story for another day. So red has made enemies of everyone, and it looks like they're trying to fortify troops into my Europe, which is crazy. But eventually they decide not to do that. But long story short, when you enter into the shenanigans phase of the game, worry less about holding your continent and worry much more about consolidating your troops, making sure you don't get slammed, making sure you're not threatening to everyone, and lining yourself up for kills. And that's why I did exactly what I did in this case, right? I decided I cared less about holding Europe or even trying to hold Europe than I did about consolidating my stacks. And you can see blue here retaking their Africa that for some reason they had vacated. I mean, maybe they just wanted to give red the opportunity to have some fun. Maybe they wanted to give red the chance to break me. Who knows what the hell blue was doing by sitting in Afghanistan when they could have just done exactly this and sat in the Middle East? In any case, after that fun little adventure ends, all of us are going to reconstitute our borders. Blue retakes Africa. I'm going to retake my Europe. Things are going to go back to status quo, at least for a second. And yellow is loving this, right? Because it's giving yellow a chance to catch up just a little bit. I'm going to show you guys this moment, not because it was strategic at all, but I just found it hilarious. So red now accepts my alliance. We're like an hour into the game. That was literally the first thing I did. That's always the first move I make, is offer the first player in the turn order an alliance. And an hour later, basically, they finally accept the alliance. So I'm like, cool, instant heart, let's be friends. You must be tired of fighting with blue this whole time with no allies, right? You must be tired of breaking everyone indiscriminately. Let's be buddies, right? That's my thinking here. So back to red's turn, I'm going to tell them to attack blue. Pretty logical, right? They've been in a war this whole time with blue. Now they're allies with me. We have the dudes trade again, of course. No surprise. But anyway, back around to red, and let's see what red does here. I'm begging them, please, please attack blue, dude. Attack blue. I have not been a fan of blue. I'll give you second place, and nope. They are going to break me in Europe. I was hysterically laughing at this point. Why would you accept my alliance and then break me? Makes absolutely no sense. Not only are they going to break me, but they're really going to hit me hard. And I'm going to go ahead and give them some hearts, right? I mean, why not? Let's just be friends with red, because why the hell not, right? And I have to say, I think that's really something that separates master and grandmaster level players from folks who are stuck at expert level. And that's coming from experience, right? I was stuck at expert for a little while because I would retaliate. Now I'm realizing that these people are strangers. If they break me, it's not the end of the world, right? Because we're making sure they don't hit our stacks. And so there's no need to retaliate. If we stay patient, we know that we have the advantage in the long run. And so we're responding to this violence, this senseless violence, with hearts and with love. Like Martin Luther King Jr., you could almost call us, right? Until we take over the whole world, that is. But we are responding to violence with love, and we are not freaking out and retaliating. And I think that's something that everyone can incorporate into their game. Skipping ahead 5 minutes here, and you can see that blue is going to get fed up and break me in Europe. I mean, blue so missed their chance to break me. If they really wanted to slow me down and stop me from getting stronger than them, they should have done this like 20 turns ago. And not only are they going to break me, but they're going to stay in Europe. They're just begging me to kill them at this point, right? And I think 90% of players here are going to kill blue, or at the very least slam into them in Africa. But skipping ahead to my turn, you see that I respond once again to the violence with love. I threaten them just a little bit, right? Hold that attack in Africa for a while. Don't hit them. Throw them a heart. Say thanks, right? So we're not going to attack blue, and we're trying to earn some good faith and teach blue how to play this fucking game. The other thing that's notable that we do is we move our 20 stack away from theirs, and once again, we're going to consolidate almost all of our troops so that there's no real way that blue can hit us, right? We threaten them but didn't break them, and then we give them nothing attractive to hit and say thanks. Back around to me, and it looks like our boy blue has an absolute death wish because they didn't move their stack, right? Like, still are in Europe, despite the fact that I have almost double as many troops as they do. So, I mean, at this point, I'm going to threaten them with the 3. They're probably thinking, what the hell is this guy doing, right? Holding the 3 over them. I'm going to hit you, right? We say thanks, end our attack phase, and now we move the big boy stack. So if you have a death wish, you're welcome to stay there. Otherwise, get the fuck out of my Europe, please, and thank you. Back around to me, and you can see that our big stick diplomacy strategy has worked. Blue has vacated Europe, not before attacking me in the Ukraine, and red hit me too, so both of our quote-unquote allies aren't exactly the best of friends. But at the very least, we retake our Europe, we don't retaliate against blue, and we show trust to blue, in fact, by leaving another one on their border. So I'm really trying to establish good relations with our neighbors here, and I have skipped so many opportunities to take vengeance on them for hitting me out of nowhere, right? We have showed patience time after time after time. And so often when you're playing fixed, it really does come down to patience, right? How many times can you get hit where you're willing to just let it go and wait for someone who's less patient to get into a war with that newer player? And I will say this kind of patient diplomacy is especially important when you're playing as the Europe player, because Europe is so hard to guard. We have 4 points where we're open to the outside world, which is the most of any continent. And so it's especially important to figure out who you can trust, to figure out where you want to put your threatening stack. And normally I would advise not putting your threatening stack near your opponents, right? That's why I didn't like this blue and yellow situation the whole game, because they have that Cold War brewing. But after blue broke me and then didn't leave, I am going to leave my big 77 stack a little bit closer to their border, right? Before, my big stack was in Ukraine, really out of the way, and now it's just a little bit closer to blue. And speaking of where you put your big stack, this is really the beginning of the end of the game right here. Blue putting their 23 right next to red's 26 is just daring red to hit them, right? They should have put all of their troops on the Middle East a long time ago, like we said. Leaving just enough troops where red can comfortably hit it is just like the worst of all possible worlds. It's daring red to hit you, and if you've watched red at all this game, you know for sure that that's going to happen. So blue is basically daring everyone around them to hit them, right? They've been stacking next to yellow all game with less troops than yellow. They're now stacking next to red with less troops than red. They're stacking next to me with less troops than me. They're giving everyone a really good reason to hit them, and soon their wish will be granted. Skipping ahead about 3 minutes in the game, this was a long one, guys. Red is finally going to hit that very juicy blue stack after I implored them to do so, and then they're going to go ahead and break me again just for shits and giggles, right? Because they totally understand the concept of an alliance. Their turn is going to run out before they have a chance to even fortify out of Europe, so a lot that Red is doing that is really great to emulate if you want to be a grandmaster. I'm going to now tell Blue to attack Red. They certainly didn't need that encouragement, but for some reason, they're going to attack Yellow. Very, very bizarre play again from Blue. I think Blue was almost more inexplicable than Red in this game because Blue clearly knows how to play at a basic level, whereas Red really doesn't, and yet Blue is still making moves that make no sense to me psychologically. So if you know what Blue is up to, let me know in the comments. I'm very, very confused about how Blue played this entire game, essentially. Right? Like not breaking me until I was way stronger than them and then choosing to break me. Just a bizarre, bizarre play from Blue. And Yellow's been loving this, right? Because me, Blue, and Red have been fighting now. Me unintentionally trying not to get into the war. And Yellow's just been chilling, getting strong, and they've basically caught up to me at this point. Back to my turn here, and I definitely would have retaken Europe if not just fully suicided into Red not that long ago. But I'm really proud of the fact that not only did I not retake Europe, but I'm just sending Red hearts. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I need to attack your territory. I really want to be allies with you. And I feel like that was such a turning point for me. We already pretty much had this game in the bag, but I knew that Red was going to basically suicide into someone. So by sending them all these hearts, by not even retaking my Europe after they broke me, I basically caused them to hit Blue here, I think, right? Rather than focus on me. And this was just the last straw for Blue, right? Blue was really tired of getting broken over and over and over and over again by Red. And so you can see here, their 70 is now open to Red, and they are going to take their vengeance. And guys, this is what we've been waiting for the entire game. This is what we've been patient for. The moment when Red and Blue just get into an all-out total war with each other, and both of them are dead from it. And I won't bore you with the whole I was patient again rant. I mean, you can see that Blue has left Africa completely open, but all we do is just retake our Europe. We don't want to get involved at all in the shenanigans, right? Red is going to smash Blue as hard as they possibly can. Now both of them are essentially dead. Back around to me, you can see that Blue has officially killed the Maniac Red, and now I decide to snap into action. I decide this is the moment to strike. I'm confident that I can beat Yellow in a 1v1, so I decide to eliminate Blue from the game. Fuck you, Blue. And now I'm going to go heads up against Yellow. It's a pretty fair fight in terms of troops, but I would say it's not a very fair fight in terms of our skill and our speed. So I'm very confident at this point that we are going to take home the W, even though we don't have a sizable troop advantage. I'm going to go ahead and skip the 1v1 that I had with Yellow. We entered with about the same number of troops, and I have to say that Yellow actually played surprisingly well. I was shocked that they even lasted this many turns. I think it was like a 3-turn 1v1. But it's essentially GG when you get into a 1v1 against someone who's not as good as you, and most importantly, not as fast as you, which really matters, right? In the 1v1, you're trying to break all of your opponent's stuff. And so we do come away with the W. This was a really fun game, despite the fact that we were playing against a field of beginners and novices, as you'll see here, because I think it was a little bit of a masterclass in why masters and grandmasters consistently win. Right? We didn't have a great spawn, we didn't have great cards, we got consistently broken by our allies, and yet by staying patient, I would say that this win was almost inevitable, especially when we saw that Blue got into that war with Red, right? It was pretty much over at that point. So if you learned something in this video, if you enjoyed it, please do let me know in the comments. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, all of that stuff. I would really appreciate it. As I said, these videos take forever to make, so your support means a lot to me. If you want me to review your game next, instructions are in the description. Check those out, and I will see you all next time.